Well, bougainvilleas are very tropical, subtropical plants, and in the growing season you convert your grain into them. In the middle of winter, don't touch them, leave them there. What you can be doing, if you want, you can defoliate, cut up all the old leaves. I usually go through mine completely, cut off all the old leaves. They're going to drop off anyway, but if you cut them off, then you get a whole mass of flowers, and you only see the flowers and not the leaves. Of course, the new leaves will come. This is the end of spring's new growth, and the leaves, just as the flowers are finishing. This variety is, what is it called? I forgot, temple fly. This is from cutting from 1994, and one of the techniques, it's just about finished flowering, the flowers are ready to drop off, and the nice thing about this tree, the leaves turn red on the end, so you get a nice new growth of red. This is one of the varieties, which is what we call a dwarf one. It only grows to about 1.5 to 2 metres anyway. It's not rampant like some of them. But it's really good for bonsai use because of that dwarfness that's already bred into it. But the advantage also is it doesn't have any thorns. Very rarely does it have. Very rarely. But generally we say it's a thornless variety. But you can see that the flowers are still large. You can't, although those of you, I'm sure you'll know, they're not really flowers. The flowers are these little white things in the middle, or brown things they are now. These are the bracts, which is neither a leaf nor a flower. It's in between. It's what attracts the insects to the tree to pollinate it. But I can't tell you what insect it is. Do you know, Margaret, what insect it is? I don't think it matters really, because to...
It doesn't have a seed.
No. So they breed new ones all the time, but I don't know how to do it. But what I find is the best way to promote more than one flower growth, this has lasted since September, so which is 3 months of in flower virtually, September, October, November. So now's the time to get it ready again for the next lot of flowering. So it should be in flower by the end of January. Now I feed quite heavily with blood and bone and diamond bitter to bring them back into growth. This is one of the easiest ways of doing it, and that's prune back really harshly on the branches. You can go back to bare wood. It doesn't matter in bougainvillea because that's where the new growth will be. So you have to cut them back right into the...
Would you be better with 2 hands?
Sorry?
Would you be better with 2 hands?
It would be better, but thanks a lot. Be a lot quicker this way. And this way you can then determine which way the branches have grown into. So what I'm doing now is just going to trim to shape, cut off any branches that's grown inwards, which they can do that without you seeing or realising.
Do you fertilize before you trim them or after?
It doesn't really matter. But now's would be a good time to root prune as well.
Products like the root booster that are high in phosphorus and potassium to sort of boost the flowers?
You can do that if you want. I generally don't bother too much because I find I don't have too much problem with it happening to get the flowers. But if you must keep them in a very warm position, of course. They do like the heat. Don't let them get too cold in winter or with wet feet, particularly. If they don't like wet feet, they'll get root rot pretty quickly. And basically, what I'm doing is cutting off all the tips of the new growth. We're just cutting to the profile. Once you've got your basic tree established, it's a lot easier then to just clip and trim and clip and grow. sometimes you have to do this anyway, so you can see into the branch structure. It gives you an opportunity to see where the leaves are actually growing from. Because they will sucker back quite a lot from the inside. I won't do the whole tree, it's a bit boring. As you can see by flicking it back, I've cut off about 3 or 4 inches of new growth. Now what will happen is this will completely reshoot. I'll feed it quite heavily with blood and bone, dynamic lifter sulfate potash I put on the top, and by usually mid-January, that's about a month, 6 weeks away, mid to late January, it'll be back in flower again. If we have a late summer, like we've been having the past few years, after it's finished flowering again in about February, if you do it again, you'll get another flowering as well. You won't get as many flowers, but you will get some more flowers on it. So you can extend your flowering period almost throughout the year. And that's on most varieties of bougainvillea, particularly these older, harder ones. Now, if you want to get an interesting root structure on them, what you have to do is to, every 2 years, I take them out of the pot to root prune them, and I lift them higher out of the ground, and then get the roots in a position where I want them to be, or cut them off. So if there's any ugly crossing roots, I don't mind a few crossing roots, because that's what bougainvillea are. They tend to be, they're only a vine, so that makes them more interesting. I don't want to look like a Japanese or try and make with a beautiful root structure, because that's what they're not. They're a vine, so I treat them as make it more interesting. So a few crossing roots, it's not a problem for me, I don't mind that at all. But I wouldn't have them going straight across. You know, anything that goes straight, I wouldn't have, I'd certainly cut it all off. Which brings us to the other one too. So,
Lee, they like a very free draining potting mix, don't they?
sorry?
They like a very free draining mix.
Yep, well, my mix is the same. I don't change, it's just the same. They all look the same. So by each year, what I do, this can be almost visual from either side, it doesn't really matter. By every 2 or 3 years, I lift this high out of the ground and expose another 1 inch of roots each time. But again, I remove the roots that I don't want, the ones that are growing straight across, because as you lift it up, you'll find there's more in there. Pick away the older soil that's growing in the middle. So each time you do it, you can lift it higher and higher out of the pot. Don't try to do it every year, because the roots won't be stable enough to do it. But every 2 or 3 years is fine to do it. Now what happens with bougainvillea, I saw this in Honolulu 25 years ago with, for those that may remember, Papa Kaneshiro and Mike Wayno, they're famous wives that do bonsai. And they showed me their bougainvillea, they couldn't get them to flower. And with age, in bonsai pots, they don't want to flower very much. So, one of the reasons, of course, is because you're always pruning it, you're cutting off the potential flowers. On the temple fire, they're a shorter growth node, and they'll flower at the end. You can see it flowers right at the end of the tip of the branch, and the new growth is just coming from the next set of branch. So this variety will flower better. This variety, which is coral pink, tends to be a bit more feral as well, but it also tends to have what we call like a leaf curl. That's just what happens to the older varieties that have been under propagation, under horticultural practices for so long. They tend to not to want to flower. But every 2 years, they'll flower like mad. Then they won't flower the following year, no matter what I do. So there must be some reason or something, but it doesn't really matter, because it gets to a point where you're not really growing the bougainvilleas for the flowers, you're growing them for what they've become, the root structure. Now, so the same difference with this, what I have done is to expose these roots, because the roots and the trunk are virtually the same thing. The only difference is roots are below ground, trunks above ground. So the minute you bring the roots above ground, they become part of the trunk. Now, normally exposed roots aren't particularly very attractive, they look quite ugly, but if you expose them in a way which you make a feature of it, then that really becomes the whole feature of the tree. The actual apex of this tree was originally from a branch down here. You can see where it's been cut from here. That was the tree when it was growing the other way up. This was a side branch that I used up and made the crown of the tree over the trunk system. The whole top of this tree comes from a branch from the back. As you can see, there's nothing in between. It's not growing from the top of it. If it was growing from the top of this root structure here, it would look quite ordinary. But because it comes down and sweeps back all over the tree again, it looks more interesting than having it the other way. So sometimes that's good to do, is to go beyond the norms of what you would normally see and do. So don't expect your bougainvilleas to flower always every year when they get, this is about 1984 too, I think. Yeah, 1984, so it's pretty young, it's only 20 years, if I'm here already, pretty young. But you do find that you tend to get a little bit of leaf curl, which is not a problem, but not all over the tree. The lower branches here, the leaves fully open. But again, I usually defoliate this twice a year.
Lee, has that been in a bonsai pot at all?
Sorry?
Have you ever had that in a bonsai pot?
Well, this,
Yeah.
someone now. Southern Cascade.
Oh, is it actually? Oh, right.
That's a Southern Cascade.
Looks like a big pot.
That's a Southern Cascade.
Right.
And you defoliate in winter?
Well, if you want to create whole new leaves, if the leaves get too big, just cut them all off. Or if there's the odd one or two too big, just cut them off. It won't affect the tree. But sometimes if I have time, I'll go completely over defoliate, which makes you look at the structure, you can see what you can cut out or redefine. The thing is, your bonsai is never finished. You're constantly looking at ways to redefine, to improve the tree you've got. I know that I want to extend the branch down here a bit longer, but I don't want to make it into a cascade. I want to keep this as a semi-cascade sort of style. So I'll extend these branches longer. But also pruning them at the same time. It's no use just growing a long branch out here, unless it's got taper as well. With a tree like this, you've got to develop taper. So each branch I grow it, cut it back, grow it, cut it back, grow it, cut it back. So it's going to take me another probably 20 years to get the branch out here where I want it to be. I'll be here, don't I? The nice thing about them are the trunks got this lovely grey bark on them, which is really quite interesting. So the same with this one and all my bougainvilleas. I've got a few of them, and each year, not each year, every 2 or 3 years, I'll take them out, root prune them, and expose the roots more. Because to me, that's what I think bougainvillea should be. If you look in some of the books in Bonsai today, you see the trunk, nice looking tree, but they don't lift the root structures out. They don't really. I think it improves it. Any more questions on there's so many varieties around, so many good ones to have to get now.
You can see by the two that are side by side on the bench there. Yeah, the one on your left, it's got the roots in the soil there.
Yeah, looks very ordinary.
Yeah, compared to the one that's got the flower.
Yeah, that's the way you usually see them, just like that. But because it's just got in the pot, I won't worry too much. But next year, I'll lift this out of the pot to expose it more, to start exposing the roots off straight away. Or maybe even the end of summer. Once it's settled in this pot and on its own root system really well, lift it out to cut the pot and start exposing the roots.
So end of the summer is the best time to do it.
Well, the end of summer, if it is doing again, which it probably wouldn't, which it would do at the end of summer, February, March, or again September, October next year. Do them when it's warm and you won't have any problems. This small one here in the mother root, that's a baby off this one. So again, it's a temper fire, small one. But this will be quite interesting on here for probably 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. might take off and start another similar thing like this in a semi-cascade style. So the bonsai's never finished, it's always they're on a path to the next part of the journey. So they're all like us, round the transits, we're only passing through.
Excuse me, Lee. When you expose the roots, do you protect them for some time? Or do you just expose them and put the gravel on?
No, do I protect them?
Do you protect those exposed roots somehow for some time?
If they're well, this is why you've got to wait for the roots to become hard. If they're the young fine white roots, if you did it like if the trees, well these are a bit old, but if you like this one here, because it's a much younger tree, if you expose those white roots, it would probably kill it. Because, so the tree's got to have relatively
older roots on top
roots to do that.
Yeah.
When you see they're there, then you can start to expose them and start to lift them up every couple of years, so you're constantly moving them onto the next level.
Thanks.
You don't try it when it's a baby.
No.
Wait until they start to get a bit older.
What about cuttings?
Cuttings? They've got relatively easy from cuttings. Semi-hardwood cuttings are okay. They can trick you. You can put a stick in a pot. Maybe you could say put this in a pot. Take all the leaves off. You can stick it in a pot and the top will start growing. You think, oh good, it's growing, I'll move it. Put it in a pot. You take it out, there's no roots on it. It's still living. It's not true market. No, Rose Bougainville is too, I know. So there's no guarantee. And you have to wait till you see the white roots sticking out the bottom of the pot. And that's when you get the most fragile. Those thin white roots, the minute you move them, they'll snap. If you're doing it sort of commercially, you've got to be very careful when you pot them on. If you're doing it for bonsai, what I would do would be to leave it in that pot size for 2 years at least. So as when or 3 years maybe. So when you do root prune it, you've got something to prune. If you try pruning a tube, a small one, you're going to usually kill the tree. So you've got to wait 2 or 3 years to root prune. Of course in bonsai, you can't just leave them, they have to be root pruned to keep them healthy. So you can't do it until they're of an age when you can prune the roots. That's why I get a bit annoyed with people go out and buy these little tubes of any plant and want to make a bonsai out of it. The poor thing's hardly got any roots. So the bonsai beginners are fine, those little ones, but put them in the ground or a bigger pot, let them grow before you try and do anything to them. You know, otherwise you're just going to lose them each time. It may only be $3 or $4 you've lost, but why waste $3 or $4 anyway? Why spend $10 and have one that's going to live, one that's got roots on them? So, you know, always keep that in mind. It's better to leave it a bit longer, leave the plant a bit longer, than do it later when it can survive okay. But they will grow from cuttings. If you do it in the middle of summer with soft tips, you can do soft tip cuttings. That's what we call a soft tip cutting with all the leaves trimmed back. But you've got to mist. When you've got to mist, you're going to get phytophthora.
What about the hardwood? If you're cutting back a vine?
Semi-hardwood, no problems at all. Trim all the leaves off, stick them in a pot in some sandy potting mix, or I usually use my spade gravel mix. This time of year, you're more or less guaranteed they will shoot, but you've got to wait to see the roots out the bottom of the pot before you pot it on. The biggest cutting I ever did of bougainvillea, which I still have to prove a point, is about 12 or 15 inches across the base, and it was 10 feet tall. I dug it out of the ground, cut all the branches off, cut all the roots off, stuck it in a pot, and it flowers all the time. That was 20 years ago. So they are very tough. Okay? Any more questions on bougainvillea? Okay, well,